But what I realized very quickly is the people who try to over explain actually hurt themselves. It's how do I simplify this message to the customer? When you're dealing with a company like Cisco, right, where there's thousands of products, that gets quickly confused by people. And if you over explain, now I have nothing left. So for me, it was actually in my own sales role, taking that and making it digestible to my customers, but by asking them questions about their business, their current technology footprint, and then weaving a story around what they said. And that worked for me.
Welcome to Shift Happens, the podcast where change meets clarity. I'm your host, Jeff Edwards. I am incredibly excited about this episode of Shift Happens. I today have Jason Marks, the CEO of both Techrategy and LEAD Above with me. We've known each other for years. He has done just a tremendous amount of work, not only with Cisco and our teams, but also our partners to really help them simplify technology in a way that helps them be more effective and more successful with their customers and deliver better outcomes. But rather than me kind of walk through this, Jason, welcome to Shift Happens. Where does this podcast find you?
Hey, man, here in Pennsylvania in my home office. Good to see you, buddy. Yes, and we've probably known each other for 20 years, so I'm happy to be on the podcast. It's been great. I've been listening to it, so love it.
Love it. It's been a minute for sure. Well, talk us through a little bit. Obviously CEO, but talk through us a little bit around Techrategy, LEAD Above. What exactly is that, and how do you work with our partners and our Cisco teams?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was obviously at Cisco before I started my company, and it's been 12 years, if you can believe that. But when I was at Cisco, I did team lead work. I was a specialist. I was an engineer. I was in sales, account manager. And I think that's one of the things that brought me to start this. It's like, well, I have something kind of unique here. I was pretty good at engineering and pretty good at sales. How do you kind of merge the two? And I think that what's really hard about technology, and it's not getting any easier, is how do I take what's really complex and break it down in a way that actually provides like an outcomes based approach to customers. And for sellers who aren't technical, think about how hard it is, Jeff. I mean, this stuff is changing all the time. So I think that is what I do. A lot of sales training and a ton of consulting for channel partners all across, not just the US, but the world.
And no surprise, like you hit right on the sweet spot of why I was excited about this conversation, because you've really spent most of your career helping companies translate really complex technology stories or really complex technology solutions into stories that actually land with customers. And I think the thing that jumps out to me is there a moment over the last 12 years that you've realized that the story matters than the actual technology or solution itself?
I realized it before the 12 years
That's why
because
you're
I
doing
think
this,
that
I'm sure,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I think, the real aha was when you change. I was, like, engineering lead in the East area, so I was the guy who got sent around to do all the super techie stuff, like cap cases and anything, right? And then I moved into sales, and I looked at sales like an engineer, not like a salesperson. I broke it all down into repeatable processes, but what I realized very quickly is the people who try to over explain actually hurt themselves. It's how do I simplify this message to the customer? When you're dealing with a company like Cisco, right, where there's thousands of products, that gets quickly confused by people. And if you over explain, now I have nothing left. So for me, it was actually in my own sales role, taking that and making it digestible to my customers, but by asking them questions about their business, their current technology footprint, and then weaving a story around what they said. And that worked for me. It was like an aha moment. So
And that's the realization, honestly, Jason, that I want to explore today, because I'm biased for sure, but I believe that Cisco already has a really powerful story in One Cisco. I think the challenge for us is how often we tell that story, but more importantly, how consistently and the way we tell that story. So maybe if we jump in, when that story, when the One Cisco story is told well, what have you seen change in the room, both from our partners and also our customers?
well, I think for the customers, I've seen it because I'm sitting in these meetings, and what I observe is if the account manager and the engineer are getting into products and features and benefits that way, and then the conversation just shifts and it goes from, let's say, collaboration to security. You can literally see how the customer's like, oh, this is disjointed. It's two silos. I need to bring this person into the room. But when the One Cisco story is told the right way, and you said it consistently the right way, it changes the customer's perception. They go from, oh, Cisco sells a whole bunch of amazing products to, wow, Cisco's actually an integrated platform that spans across all of my technology environment. And I think the key thing there is you hear the story and it's a great story, but what if everybody tells it different? What if there's thousands of versions of it? That's not good branding. Think about branding 101. So I see that aha from the customers. From the partner side, the aha is when it's done really well and you start to talk about profitability and how can my salespeople go out and tell a better story? And what's the benefits of this? The sales people at our partners go, I can do this. I can tell that story. It's easy to tell. It makes sense. And they tend to want to do that over telling 1,000 other vendor stories, right? Because I can get my arms around it. So those are kind of the big ahas I see when it is done well. But I think that consistency is definitely the key.
Yeah, it reminds me, Jason. So I'll go back in time a little bit. I left Cisco after 17 years to go to a security startup, and then if my mom were to tell the story, she would say that Cisco couldn't keep me, so they went and bought the company I went to. And I'm not sure that it actually worked like that. But when I came back into Cisco as part of that acquisition, I one of the first meetings I was a security specialist, and specifically for a product called Stealth Watch. And I remember sitting in the meeting with this partner who I'd known for a long time. We had four different people from security, Cisco security, all telling our own story without it relating. But then we wanted to say, well, it's the power of Cisco and one platform, but it doesn't resonate when you tell it like that. And so it's when this full story lands, what are the ingredients? If we were building a recipe for a really powerful story around the One Cisco platform, what are the ingredients of that story?
Yeah. So the ingredients of any good story are, first of all, what is the outcome, right? Like I almost think working backwards is better. So I know all of these things that we do, but what could the potential business outcomes be? And then you tell the story to make it even better. You tell it in the customer's vernacular. So in your type of business and with your current technology footprint, with your leaders, this is how I think it'll help. It's going to reduce your operational overhead. It's going to integrate your solutions. It's going to mean tighter digital resilience across things like collaboration and the data center. That is what I think starts the right ingredients off. And then clearly, you can't tell somebody a story once, it's practice. I mean, as silly as that sounds, Jeff, you kind of have to practice it. So when I teach people the One Cisco story, I say, go right out and just say it to somebody. It won't be great. They won't know any better. And then it really starts to click. So, hey, I'm going to interject and throw you off here for a second, but you brought up your old thing. You said, I left Cisco. I went to Stealth Watch. You were working with a good friend of mine there. And that brings me to a quick example. I was an account manager at Cisco before that acquisition, but we could sell Stealth Watch, an amazing product, but very confusing. And I sold a lot of it. And they think the reason I sold a lot of it was because I told a story about how, because of the Cisco network and because of the built in flow on our switches, we could literally just take that sampling data and not just find, oh, here's a new potential security attack. It was, this is actually a baseline of what good is. And now when things fall outside of that, I can tell you when there's an alarm or an alert. That was unique, and being able to tell that story, you just brought me back. I'm like, dude, that is a perfect example because that's a product that wouldn't have been sold if you could not tell that story the right way. I'm sure you know that.
But well, one, you're speaking directly to me, because when I went there, I realized I don't have an engineering background, and my only chance was to be able to simplify the story in a way that helped customers understand and partners understand what the outcome was it delivered. And you're right, like that is the power that kind of encapsulates all that we're talking about today. Because what we know, read any book on storytelling or effective communication, no one wants to hear about how many buildings you have or the number of employees you have. They want they want to see themselves and what you're talking about. And if you can't do that, you're going to lose them pretty quickly. But I think for everybody out there that either as a Cisco employee that's got a quota you're trying to overachieve, or a partner who's driving revenue, I guess the so what here is, when you do this right, what does it do to the point players that we compete against?
Yeah. Well, it makes them a non-conversation because they become siloed. So when you are trying to make money in sales and you decide, I'm going to put my product up against these other 20 products, I mean, come on, it's like gambling at that point. Yeah, you could be a little better, but all of it's lost in the sauce versus I'm going to turn this around. I'm going to really perfect a story that talks about the customer, their outcomes, the way it's integrated, and do it simple, quick, simple, and something that people can remember. How much can you remember from a story? You might read a book, but you remember the key parts, right? But being able to tell a story in under 5 minutes, get the key parts out and have the customer go, I actually see how that's going to help our business. That sounds way easier. That's what we're looking for. And it's funny you say this because there's so many books out there. I ask salespeople all the time, how many books have you read on storytelling? And it's like crickets. It might be the most important skill. As a salesperson, we don't put nearly enough emphasis on it.
That 100% agree. And I think that there's a number of studies that would tell you that the single biggest soft skill that you can have is the ability to storytell. Because if I think about things in simple terms, and if I think about the person's brain you're speaking to, it's either Velcro or Teflon, one of the two, right? And you get to choose based on how you tell that story. Does it stick? Can they retell it? Which is the power of a good story, or not? And so if that's the goodness of when you do it right, one of the things we try to do here is keep it real. What does it look like when we don't get it right? Like, what do we open ourselves up to?
Well, a ton of risk, right? I mean, from the partner perspective, I don't even think people realize this happens, but it literally can come down to why you lost a deal. And you may not realize, but they picked either another partner with Cisco or they picked another partner with a competitor. And often it does come down to who told the most compelling story based on the customer's outcome. So it hits your literal bring home pay if you're in sales, not being able to tell a story. And it goes beyond that. It's not just the story about Cisco, it's even anecdotally when I first get on a phone with somebody, can I tell a quick story about what happened that weekend and make it interesting? So storytelling is certainly pervasive as a skill throughout sales, but the risk of not being good at it is just limited pay, buddy. I mean, and I say that
No one,
because
no one's
that's
looking
the
for that,
most
Jason.
simple thing. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think everybody knows that. They don't want that.
And if we open up risk, I look at this as when it's done well, it's almost like this pervasive blanket that fills all the gaps and it makes it really hard for our competitors to chip away at us. But
Mhm.
back to the point, when we're not doing it well, where does that open up competition? Where do they like to attack us when we don't do this well?
Well, when it opens up competition, it's because it's a siloed approach. And then what happens is it's my specific product. Let's say it's a firewall. My firewall has these three features that your firewall doesn't have. And now this just goes back and forth, and then the price has to drop versus, yeah, but my firewall is part of digital resilience, which overlays into future, future proof workplaces, and it also goes right into AI ready data centers. No, who else can tell that story, Jeff? Who else can tell that story? Anybody can tell a story of, hey, my one or two products can do all these things. But then you're like, yeah, but now I have to manage that. And then I have to manage this and I have to manage this other vendor and this other thing. And none of it's integrated. None of it works together. Buying it is something we forget about how difficult it is to buy 100 different manufacturers' products. With Cisco, you go, okay, I see the One Cisco story. It overlays on top of everything technologically. I'm secure. Oh, and I can just buy it through an EA. Like it's easy.
So buying program, there's a sales guy coming out on you, Jason. You just weaved in buying programs. I like
I
it.
couldn't help it. Couldn't help it. Couldn't help it.
No, I love that idea because you mentioned three different things: digital resilience, AI ready data centers, and future proof workplaces. And I can guarantee you every single one of our customers are thinking about at least two of those on a daily basis, probably all three of those, right? As
Probably
they make
all
decisions.
three.
And you also said something that made it, or I guess it struck me, which is our customers and the people making their decisions have difficult jobs. They're not technology experts in many cases, and especially across 20 different vendors or 10 different vendors. And how does this make it easy for them to say yes and defend that decision inside of their company?
Again, you probably like, well, what do I do that's different than everybody? It's that I also was a customer. So I say like, hey, I've really done every angle of this. And I will tell you, man, from the customer perspective, it's not that they're not technology experts. They actually are. It's just that they're technology experts on their current environment. They know more about it and every little what IP address does what and what route goes to where and what phone does it. They know it all. But they don't necessarily know, well, what does Cisco do that this vendor doesn't, and this vendor and this, and there's thousands of them out there, and how do I even select a pro? And that's mind-boggling because that's not their job. They're managing their environment. They're not out there researching it. So when we come in with the right story and a consultative approach, that's certainly where we can win. Absolutely.
Yeah, and one more thing before we move off this topic, because and I've seen this in real life. I'd love to know your experience. So there's also this issue of trust, and it sounds like an odd word to use when we're talking about storytelling and this the power of the One Cisco platform. But have you seen it to where we say one thing, we show up and do another, meaning we're talking point product and not weaving it all together, and that over time that trust starts to erode because what we say and what we do don't match consistently.
Yes, certainly. I think that often though comes down to a street level, right? That really almost comes down to the person who's the one in that seat as the Cisco rep or the partner rep, having them be aligned, having them tell a consistent story and then delivering on what they tell. And that means not overselling. It means not getting into like obscure features and bringing the engineer in to demo this some random thing that no one's ever going to use. I think that's what it comes down to. So even if Cisco had the greatest story ever, which they do, it doesn't matter if that individual salesperson at the partner is telling it wrong or they don't follow it or they do it one day and then they don't do the next. It really needs to be consistently. And then for our PAMs too, who are actually consulting and working with our partners, they need to have that approach, consistency. I mean, Jeff, branding 101, like I said before, right?
Yeah. And it just keeps hitting me. It's like a flashing neon sign. When we don't tell the whole story, we invite interpretation,
Yeah.
and interpretation invites risk.
Well, yeah, because think about times where there were these, I'll call them like a deal was done. And then you hear the horror story of, well, they told me it did this and then it didn't do that, or, that kind of thing. Like that happens. That's because you may have never said that, but the way you said it made the customer interpret it a certain way. And often what happens is the customer's interpreting it going, eh, that's not integrated. That sounds like a headache to manage. They don't because you've told it wrong. You've made it sound more complex than it needs to be. And as somebody who was a engineer at one point, I will tell you, engineers are the best thing ever, but they also can be the worst in the sense of as an engineer, you have to keep all of that knowledge inside of you a lot of the times. You're like, yeah, I know a million things, but I don't need to tell them all to you. I can just keep it simple. What's going to actually impact your business and how? So
It is. It's a great point. Is just because you know a million things doesn't mean you need to share a million things,
mhm. I
especially right up
agree.
front, right? As you're
Yeah.
walking through this. So maybe let's get into how we do this better,
Mhm.
and help everybody listening at least digest today what are the things that they can do. But I think anytime we think about how we tell effective stories and how we talk about the power of the Cisco platform, the only way I know to do it is to ground ourselves in what our customers' reality is today. So I know you've worked with a lot of partners, a tremendous amount of Cisco reps and teams, and you intersect with those customers. What's their reality today? Because AI's AI has a promise that is unbelievable, but the complexity up front with AI and what do they do and what are those use cases and are they ready for it? And it's a lot on our customers today. So walk me through their reality.
Yeah, I mean, I think the reality for customers today is that they know they need to stay current. They're trying to make smart investments. They have a budget every year that they need to spend, Jeff. And the challenge they have is they don't really even know what's going to happen in a year, let alone 5 years. So now I have to think about what technology I'm investing in today. Will it even work in 3 years if I want to roll out some AI use case? And they don't know. It's not even about doing AI necessarily today. It's even being prepared for it. So I think one thing that I really like about the One Cisco story and just in general is AI is not an afterthought. It's built into the story. It's at the forefront. When you hear AI ready data centers, it means we're future proofing you so that no matter which way you go, we may not be the ones to actually go in and implement the AI, but we know that your environment's secure. We know that your workplace is ready for it. And then we know that the infrastructure that it's actually going to be on is going to work well for it now and even a few years from now, no matter what changes. I think that's a key thing. So customers are really struggling with like what to invest in. Just in AI in general, there's a lot of money being lost over it because people are trying to boil the ocean with it is the biggest thing I see. And I think what tends to work best with AI today, where it can actually make an immediate operational impact, is simple use cases. Start small, make sure that actually worked, make sure it actually made an impact, and then go on to the next thing. But I think where Cisco really comes in is it needs to be stored somewhere, Jeff. It needs to have compute behind it. It needs to have connectivity. It needs to have cloud. You need a place to work, and then you need to secure it. And where else would you go to do all of that? I mean, what other company would you go to? I don't know. It would be
But
Cisco.
it,
So I
it
guess,
would be it would be
yeah,
difficult, and I think you
it'd
paint
be
a picture
difficult.
of our customers are in a really high stakes environment,
Mhm.
but the stakes are also, I think, high for Cisco and even our competitors. And maybe speak to it because right now, and you hit on it, it's something that I firmly believe that AI use cases are in the future, but the decisions around how they ready their network, how they ready their data center are today. Those are real opportunities.
Absolutely.
And those opportunities will decide who's going to deliver those use cases down the road. So, talk to us about the stakes of not wrapping this story together and really starting to talk about, yes, there's a roadmap, but we're going to start here together, right? We don't have to fast forward to that. But what are the stakes of getting it right today with those initial decisions?
Well, getting it right today means you're just not simply wasting money. I mean, there's going to be many companies that are investing in technology now that literally in a year or two, they might go, gosh, we wasted $1 million on that. That wasn't even right. Or they they go down one path and then they're kind of stuck because they built their infrastructure around something that's just not flexible. So that's the other thing. I mean, anyone today in technology, any IT director, CIO has to be thinking about AI, but they have to be thinking about where this is going to go in the future. And every dollar I put into my infrastructure, I have to make sure that it's going to be supported in 5 years, that it's backed by a big company, that it's secure, that it's flexible, that it's cloud thinking forward, but also has the on premise piece because we don't really know where things are going to sit or how they're going to shift. And can that be done? Absolutely. Do people do that? No, because they often go out and go, I need this widget to solve this one issue today. And they don't step back and go, if I was to build this for the next 10 years, where would I start? And that's what they should do. And then they should start to piece things in as they go. So, I mean, I think that's what it comes down to.
And let's get specific on this one. I'll ask you about when you help our partners and our teams learn to tell this story better. What are specifically the Cisco advantages, including our ecosystem and our partners, right? What are the specific Cisco advantages with the One Cisco platform and that One Cisco story? And how do you bring that to life in a way that resonates with customers?
Yeah. So the advantages are we break them up into buckets. So on the customer side, lower operational efficiency because it's easier to manage. Um, Single support, security across all platforms, true integration, easy buying programs. And those are the things that tend to give customers the most anxiety. Like you wouldn't believe it, but we're talking to a lot of end customers like, I have to manage thousands of this and that and SKUs. This kind of helps eliminate that. On the partner side, when it's done well, it's more profitable because where a lot of partners struggle is they tend to play again in one silo. That silo might be, hey, we do these 5 things really well in security and we don't really do collab. And that's fine. I get that you have to evolve into that, but that doesn't mean you can't tell the Cisco story the right way today. Because at the end of the day, the customer is making the decision on which manufacturer solutions I want to put in my environment. So they need to understand how it's all connected. Even if you're a partner and you say, well, we don't do collab. Yeah, but it's important to the customer. You should still be able to tell it in your story. Do you agree with that, by the way?
100%. And yet, let me maybe we'll rewind just maybe 45 seconds because it's fascinating how you answered the question of what the Cisco advantage is because I didn't hear one product.
Yeah, no product.
I didn't even hear a portfolio when you answered it to begin with because and keep me honest, it was lower operational costs
Mhm.
from a customer perspective,
Yeah.
a single support source,
Mhm.
security across all layers,
Mhm.
full integration and buying programs that allow you to consume it at your pace, the way you want to consume it.
Mhm.
None of that talked about collaboration or networking or a specific product. And then you pivoted to the partners, and it's not inexpensive to try to be a best of breed partner, because there is the investment you have to do to understand those products. There's the certifications. That's difficult. And in the world that I live in, Jason, managed services is the air that I breathe. And if you look at how you deliver managed outcomes, doing it across multiple vendors is a nightmare. It costs you more. It reduces your profitability. And so there's power in the story. Now we deliver it with solutions and products and architectures, but the story itself about is really around the outcome that it's delivering to the customer.
Yeah. Yeah, it's real quick though. I just wanted to talk on the partner side. It is expensive to be a partner that's, say, in security or networking, and then they go, "Well, now I want to try to get into like collaboration." That is, but what's free is still being able to tell a story that's cohesive across all architectures, whether you support them or not. Because at the end of the day, you may not be a collaboration partner. Does the customer still have it? Yeah, everybody does. Do they still need to secure it? Yeah. So you do have to be able to speak that way, and what that actually leads to for partners, and I see this every day, is larger deals. It's not just that one solution. It ends up becoming, oh, we ended up kind of going deeper and wider, and then we worked with this team and that. And we brought it all together into an integrated platform. When you hear about those deals, I'm always like, that's impressive. Like that rep and that team, they really had it together. And then I hear of a lot of deals where I'm like, okay, cool, you sold that one-off deal, but where's that going to be in 5 years? And is it still going to be a thing? Is it still going to be supported? It's like customers who run out and buy that new shiny object OEM thing. And then in 2 years, they're like, it's not supported anymore. Right. So, I mean, I could go on and on about the advantages, but I think that's a simple way to look at it. Whether people realize it or not, it leads to larger profitability and less time spent, especially for sales teams. Go try and sell 1,000 different manufacturers, Jeff, and tell me how it works out for you.
It's yeah, no thanks. I appreciate it, but no thanks, Jason. And I was going to ask you, but I think we've covered it. What are the best partners? What do the best sellers do differently? And it is focused on outcomes, and it is driving the holistic story that sets you up. And one of the things that I'm a big believer in is when you land a deal, that is simply your license to hunt. That's where it starts, right? If you do this correctly, and to your point, you can expand into collab, or you can be that connective tissue for that customer that says, I may not deliver it, but I will work with an ecosystem to make sure that outcome's delivered. But we talk about simplification a lot. How do you simplify this story without oversimplifying it? Because that is, I think, and I'll get this quote wrong. I'm positive I'll get this quote wrong, but I think it's a Mark Twain quote, and it's something about I would have wrote a shorter story if I had more time, right? Or I would have wrote a shorter letter. And so there is magic in understanding how much to cut, but not to cut the meat or the heart out of the story. Walk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, I think you asked a couple questions in there. I want to go back to the beginning. Your first question was really, what do the successful sellers do? And they do this. So let's say right now, and it'd be easy for anybody listening to this to get access to it, but I've written the One Cisco story for Cisco. We've used it within the channel. And then, I'd say they're all pretty much the same version that you can find out there. So partners can easily go access that. But here's the problem. They need to actually sit down then and they got to go, I'm going to almost kind of memorize this. This is a shortened version of it. But what makes a seller better is being able to take that short story, ask the customer the right questions first, then take their short story and then amp it up by adding in the customer's answers. Now it's real. Now it's not just something you're repeating. So you said, what do the best sellers do? Ask questions, already have kind of a pre-canned story, and then merge the answers in with their pre-canned story to make a story that actually matters to that customer, to their environment, to their budget, to the way they spend, to the way they think. That's unique. That's a skill, and that's a skill that takes time. So, but just to break it down, as far as learning how to make a better story, It is the Mark Twain quote. It is way harder to simplify something. It's actually easier for me. We brought up a random product like StealthWatch, which I believe Cisco Secure Network, I think is what we call that now. So, that story, you can explain it. I could tell you all about it in 2 hours and you would be bored. And so we would never have another listener on this podcast, but I could also tell it in 60 seconds. And then I can ask you some questions. And then I could add that into it and maybe tell you 2 more minutes about how now it's going to impact your business. That's the skill. And I think the recipe for that is memorize your short story first, refine, edit, keep it down, and literally say it out loud in practice. And no one really wants to do that, but that works. And then get good at asking the right questions and weave them in, and boom, now you magic.
The part that is really powerful, and I wrote down something, I'd love your reaction to it. If you do this really well, it's interactive storytelling.
Yeah.
It's not a one-way story, and your customer will help you build the interactive part in the rest of your story. They'll tell you where they want to go on this journey.
That's right.
You just have to get the first part and allow them to then share, because that's the interactive part of the storytelling.
That's right. It would be like asking the customer, well, Jeff, where do you guys see yourselves in 5 years as it relates to AI? Like, well, I don't know. Do you think you probably have something AI going on in the next few years? Well, yeah, everybody will. Now, when you're procuring equipment or you're building out your data center, are you thinking about where that might be in 5 years? And then they answer you. They go, well, not really. And then now when I tell the story, I go, hey, earlier, Jeff, when you were talking about building out your data centers and AI in the future, here's how our platform helps with that. Because now they already told you. So that's the concept of how you take the same story and you go back and forth with somebody and make it interactive. And that's really the best. But people need a lot of practice at that. I think that's a skill, takes practice. I wasn't always good at that. Still need work at it.
And even in that example, the thing that I picked up on is, yes, AI is directing their thoughts and their purchasing process, right? And the decisions they make. But they just admitted they don't actually know how, or they don't know where they're going to be in 5 years. So your ability to de-risk that and give them a platform that allows them to make better decisions as they have more information because of the platform and what it can deliver holistically, you're helping them at that point. You're not just helping you.
Definitely. Well, yeah, I mean, that's why I like B2B sales, but specifically technology, because I never wanted to teach people how to sell something or sell it myself that I was like half-hearted about. And when you sell something because you know for sure this is actually going to make an impact with the customer, the best thing is then the customer just wants to keep working with you. Then they trust you. Then they want to do more. You sell something to somebody one time that doesn't really meet up to what they thought, or you didn't explain it the right way. And then guess what? They bought that thing. Good for you, but they're not coming back. So that's the other risk.
Well, before we move into, because we like to take ideas and turn them into action, and we'll do that today, Jason. But before we get there, if you had to pick out maybe one or two of the most common mistakes when people tell it's One Cisco story, whatever it may be, right? What are one or two of the most common storytelling mistakes that you see?
They wanna put too many products in it. My story has no products. Is it? I mean, where do you start and end, right? So it's products, that's a big thing that I think people struggle with. And in the real world, they don't ask questions before they start telling their story. They just kinda show up and go, "Here's my story." So then there's no context behind it, and they don't do what I just said. They don't take their canned story, weave it in with your real information. That has to be in the top 3 biggest sales mistakes that sort of go under the radar. Just that people don't realize that's a thing.
So you're telling me that our customers aren't waiting on us to walk in the room to show them every product that we have
Right.
and to just exhaust our story without knowing anything or finding anything about their business as we go.
Right. No, and usually when we do interact with customers, especially our partners, because the customer starts with a problem or a need, like, hey, we have this project this year, we have this need this year. And then where salespeople tend to go wrong, and I've been guilty of this, you want to fix that need. That's it. But the problem is you can't just do that. To be really good, you need to go, I can fix that need, but tell me about all this other stuff about your business and your environment, because now when I fix that need, I may simultaneously be able to solve a problem that you don't even know you have. I may be able to prepare you better for 5 years from now because we don't know what's going to happen. But the more I learn about your business and your current technology footprint and the way your team works, the better I can kind of help you as a consultant fit into the right solution, right? So I think that's a skill that I wish people could work on more.
And I love this because I'm a big believer, like focus on the things that are in your control. And if I'm a seller or if I'm a partner out there, nothing we've talked about today requires me to be a CCIE or some technical wizard. It requires me to practice, and it requires me to think about that clarity will be completeness. You can tell a really long story, but clarity around exactly the outcome you're looking to provide and understanding that is really important. And then sequence beats volume, which means the more you tell it, guess what? The better you will get. It's really practical. So if if you're a listener out there today, give me 3 practical actions that they can do when they take the ear pods out, take the headphones off, whatever they do with this podcast. What are 3 practical actions they can do that will help them get better at this starting today?
Yep. So now when you say better at telling One Cisco or just better at storytelling and sales in general?
I think it's both. I think it's both. Because yeah, I don't think I differentiate the two because if you're good at one, the other comes much easier, right?
Right. Well, I mean, let's start with the One Cisco because that's easy to get your arms around. I would say get on the podcast. Look, take 5 minutes, go look it up on Black Belt or on internal Cisco sites. The story's all over. Memorize it. Just start with something really basic like that. Then say it out loud a couple times. Then go to one of your existing customers and kind of try it out on. Like you just simply start with, hey, let me ask you some questions about what's going on, and then you tell the story. So that's the practice part. I think the best kind of practice is just go try and tell it. You're not going to mess it up that bad. But I think when it comes to any time you have a meeting and people tell me if you think people do this consistently, because you're going to go like, well, of course everybody does that. Sit down before any meeting and go, I know this customer really well, but I'm still going to put 20 minutes of prep in. I'm going to practice what I'm going to ask. I'm going to practice what I'm going to say. There's no way you can tell me that that meeting won't go smoother. Even if you've been in sales 20 years, just that act, it does for me. I sit down, I go, how do I think this is going to go? What should I ask? What about their business? And then I practice a bit and man, 20 minutes, it's like shocking versus just showing up. And not that you can't be successful just showing up, but there is something to be said for that kind of routine and practice consistency. And I guess I'll go back to my question. How many people do you think actually do that, Jeff?
I don't think it's a majority for sure. I think it's lower than what people think, and it takes me back to so one, we've known each other, like you said, 20 years.
Mhm.
I spent an hour researching what you're doing now, who you're interacting with, what customers you had worked with lately, and really tried to understand because if I'm if I'm really trying to show up the best way possible, I may know a lot, but what's changed since the last time we interacted? Like what's different now and what could I learn and how could I ask a better question? And I think it takes me back to my favorite James Clear quote, which is you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And if your systems are consistent preparation for every meeting that matters, every sales call that matters, you will be better.
Yeah, I mean, look, I put 2 hours into prepping for your podcast because I didn't know what the hell you were gonna ask me or where it was gonna go, and I was, and of course, I can always get caught flat-footed. I didn't want that to happen. I still struggled saying future proof workplaces. I think it's the 2 Ps, but the rest of it, I was pretty sharp so far, I think. So, even though I practiced, still not perfect, but the point is, I had to put time in because I didn't really know what you were gonna ask me. I thought you might make me give the whole story, but I figured, don't do that because it's easier to just go find that anywhere.
Yeah, it goes back to the prep for the story and what are the keys to it. And so um if maybe let's end with this and then maybe I got a fun question for you. If Cisco and our partners consistently told the One Cisco story well and consistently told it every time they touched either as a partner account executive, the partners that they support, or their shared customers, what would be different 5 years from now for Cisco, for our partners, and for our customers?
Yeah, I mean, we would have more profitability for down to the individual rep. They would frankly make more money every year because they would have larger deals. They'd get deeper and wider in their customers. They would less silo sell. They would solve bigger problems. And then for Cisco as a company, I think people would stop saying, well, it's Cisco's number 2 at security, or they're number 1 at security, they're number 4, it's whatever that is, and they'd go, "Well, who cares?" The Cisco has a platform that goes across all of technology, all the architectures, it's very consumable. I think that's what would change. I think there's a challenge sometimes when you've been around as long as a company like Cisco. I mean, 25 years ago, they were the largest company in the world, right? That's 25 years of making technology solutions. People are like, yeah, I've heard this before. But if you haven't sat down with a customer and told that one Cisco story, they still probably see Cisco as they're good at networking, they're good at collaboration, but it's separate. It's not like, oh, they're a technology platform that spans across my whole environment. I don't know that people hear that enough or think that way. So
And it's one of the people that used to be on my team. I loved it. It was saying he called it coats of paint.
yeah.
Never, n- never underestimate the value of additional coats of paint when you're telling stories, because again, just like they may have evolved or changed since the last time you met with them, may have a perception.
Yeah.
And if you're not very specific and very clear on that story, you'll run the risk of them putting into the box of 25 years ago or 15 years ago or whatever that may be.
Yeah, to that point, it's not, by the way, it's not a bad idea to ask somebody, "Hey, it's been a while since I've asked. What is your perception of us?"
That's a good. I like that. That is like anytime we're trying to, um, if you're going for a different role inside a company, or if you're trying to better understand yourself, we do 360s
Yep.
where we ask people for their perception of us. We don't do that with our customers enough. Like that's a really good one. I like that one.
You're not gonna hurt my feelings, give me the good, the bad, and the ugly. What do you really think about us? And you won't hear all good, and then, especially if they haven't heard the story, you can come back and go, "Well, hey, let me tell you kind of why things have changed," or, "Let me give you a little bit of a different way to look at it," but you have to start with, "Well, what are they even thinking?" I do like that a lot.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll leave you with one thing, Jason, I love to do, and it works for me. It may work for someone else. Anytime I'm trying to simplify a story, but tell it in a compelling way, especially when it's around technology. My wife loves this. I ask her to be my customer
Mhm.
and I share it with her because she is non technical with a period on the end of it.
Yeah.
And if at the end of me telling that, she understands at least directionally where we're going in the concept and what I'm trying to get across,
A great way to do it.
I've got the makings of a powerful story, right? But if she looks at me like, yeah, I don't get technology, it doesn't make any sense to me, you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, and I get to practice that every day because I'm mostly not, and sometimes I'm in front of engineers, but I'm usually in front of salespeople, and they're not technical. And I can tell right away when their eyes gloss over if I'm not explaining it in a simple way. And I know I do this different than you. You're a very good storyteller. I do think you are good at netting things out, and I bet, but you build them different than me. I think you build them with like a business outcome in mind. I just say I do that. I don't really what I actually do. I build them as an engineer. I go really deep into what all the stupid, boring stuff is. Then I take it to the outcome and then I simplify and cut all of the boring stuff out. But that's just my processes just in case I want to really understand what all this stuff is behind the scenes. But for most people, that's such a waste of time. You do not need to do that. It's just my process.
But you hit on it. This will be different for everyone. Everyone's not going to be able to tell a story the same way, but you have to learn what works for you. You have to understand where the finish line is of that story, and how you get to that finish line will be up to you, right? Based on your experience, what your comfort level is. And maybe that takes us to, we close this podcast with the same question every time. It's one of my favorite questions to ask anyone. So, Jason, if you look back over your career and you've had a incredible amount of success over your personal life, I am a firm believer that there's a red thread that if you look back, anytime you've had great success, that there's something that tends to be there, right? It's consistently there. I like to call it your superpower. Um, and 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 sometimes you know it, sometimes you don't. And other people have said, "Do you realize you do this really well?" And you're like, "I just took it for granted. I didn't realize it mattered that much." So what is your superpower as you look back over your career and life? And did you always know it, or did someone shine a light on it for you?
I didn't always know it, but kind of. So my superpower is very few people can be very technical and also very good at sales or salesy. I always, from the time I was little, like making friends, going anywhere, but I have a big personality, I'm not everybody's cup of tea, by the way, either, but 99%, rate. So I always have had that sales thing, but I'm like very nerdy. Like I really like to know how things work. I love that stuff. So my superpower is being able to do both well. And then I think the person who told me, I don't even know who it would be, but I can tell you this. Before I started at Cisco, I owned a small business, networking business. Like we were a reseller, basically. I also sold dial up internet service. So I was technical. I had an engineering degree and background and all of that. And I started at Cisco as an engineer, and I was literally in new hire training. And a senior manager told me, and I think it was because I was drinking a lot and having a good time partying and very loud. He goes, "Dude, you need to get in sales as soon as possible." Now I didn't. It still took me like 5 years, but that I do remember back to that because it's just my nature. And I like people. That helps.
Yeah, I mean, what a powerful superpower. And I just wrote down, you have the ability to go deeper than most and to simplify better than most. Right? And those are, you put those two together and you get, you know, what you have and the businesses that you've built, and just the power of the way that you've coached and helped our teams and our partners be better at what they do. So I just, I want to thank you, Jason, for your time today. I loved it. I love talking about storytelling. I'm sure you couldn't tell. I just get how much it matters and how little people tend to think about it. And especially being part of Cisco, and it's nice to be back on the cool side of the building again, right? With the stock going up and everything. And I want to make sure we capitalize on what is an incredibly strong story. And it's not about reinventing anything. It's simply being able to articulate it in a way that matters and resonates with our customers. And so, you know, my encouragement to everyone is, you don't have to reinvent the story. Tell the one that we have. Do it often. You'll get better at it. And Jason, if they need help, if you're a partner out there that really wants to equip your teams to be more effective in their ability to position technology, to drive better outcomes, and to better understand how to storytell, or if you're a Cisco leader and you look and say, we need to be better at this, how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, easy. You can hit me up on LinkedIn, send me a message, or you can email me. It's jmarks@leadabove.ai. And that's it. Simple.
jmarks@leadabove.ai. And if you don't know how, if you forget any of that, just shoot me a note, Jeff Edwards, and I will get you in touch with Jason. Fantastic. I really enjoyed the conversation, Jason. Thank you. I hope you're having a wonderful new year, and look forward to connecting soon.
All right. Thanks, Jeff. Take care.
Thanks, Jason. Bye-bye. And that's a wrap on this episode of Shift Happens. Remember, change doesn't wait, and neither should you. So take what you've learned, put it into action, and together, let's go make shift happen.